This is Josh White with JW Math Tutoring. Today's video is going to cover 10 problems from the November 2024 Digital SAT Math section. So let's go ahead and take a look.
But life is a dream the calculus could never predict.
Before I get started on this second video covering November 2024 Digital SAT Math problems, just want to mention a couple things. First, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, sign up for notifications. Second, some of these problems on an actual exam would obviously be multiple choice, especially ones where the answers are, say, formulas or expressions and not just numerical values. Um, but I don't have all the answers, and so I'm just doing them as free response type questions. So just keep in mind that for some of them, there may be multiple ways to do them if you do have, multiple choice answers. Another thing to keep in mind too, if you have questions or comments, please do leave them below. Or if you have alternate solution methods, feel free to share this as well. Just like with August, October, I'll make a follow-up video that will show alternate solution, methods to some of these problems. Okay, so starting with the first one, this was a pretty popular problem for discussion, and it was basically something about there were two different whatever, I think it was mostly animals and different the different problems that were out there, and it was asking about what you need to do to design a study to ensure that you can determine a cause and effect relationship between whatever, a certain diet or some type of treatment that would be applied to these two different types of animals. So the correct answer for this is going is going to be letter D. Basically, random assignment of the items that you select or choose to be in your study to both treatment and control groups is how you ensure that there's a cause and effect relationship, or in other words, what makes the study valid or determining the effect of the treatment valid. Okay. Let's see here. Letter A, which is just randomly selecting the pigs and hogs or whatever the animals are, is what you do if you want to generalize the study to the largest population possible. Okay, so random selection is what allows you to generalize a study to a larger group, which obviously it's not the correct answer for this problem, but I'm just telling you that in general. Whereas random assignment is what allows you to determine a cause and effect relationship, or essentially ensure that the study is valid in terms of determining the cause and effect of a treatment. Okay, the next question is a repeat question that we have seen before. So basically, you have this rectangular region, right? And it's divided into a bunch of small squares. Each of these small squares has an area, usually of capital R. And then you're told that the length is 2.5 times the width. However, you also know the width is equal to x root r. Okay, so this right here, this is intended to be the width. Now, the length is just going to be 2.5 times that. So in other words, the length is going to be 2.5 times x root r. So the way that you solve this now is you say, okay, area rectangle, length times width. So that is 2.5x root r times x root r. The root r's just become r, x becomes x squared, you get a 2.5 in front. Then you set that equal to what the area of the rectangle must be based on this first sentence, specifically this information right here. Each square has an area of r, and there are 90 of them. So the total area is also going to be equal to 90r. And that causes the r's to cancel out, and then you can just divide by 2.5. and that gives you x squared equal to 36. So the value of x is just going to be positive 6. Of course, once you set up the equation here and you cancel the r's out, I mean, you could just type that in Desmos and get the answer that way as well. But the correct answer for this problem is positive 6. All right, next up we have a problem involving a rectangular prism. So if I just sketch out a quick picture here. Okay, you're told that the height is 3. You're told that this base area here is equal to the expression 30t, and you're told the length of the base is 10 thirds. So let's say this is 10 thirds. They want to know the total surface area of the prism. Okay, obviously the answer to this is going to be an expression with t. It's not just going to be a numerical value, right? Because we have this right here with t, we don't know what t is. So what we need to do is first find the width. And we can do that by knowing that the base area is just equal to length times width, or in other words, 10 thirds times w. So now, if we go ahead and just solve this for w, multiply by 3 on both sides, that's going to be 90t equals 10w. Divide by 10. Okay, the width is just going to equal 9t. Okay, so this is 9t. So now, all we have to do for total surface area of a prism is basically it's, 2 length width plus 2 length height plus 2 width height. The order technically doesn't matter. But essentially, there's 6 total sides. There's a front, back, a left, right, top, bottom. So now we can just plug everything in. Notice that the length times the width down here, that's just the base area. So this is really equal to 30t. So we can just substitute that in right away. So that's just going to be, 60t total. And then after that, let's see, we have the length, which is 10 thirds, times the height, which is 3. 3's will cancel. 2 times 10 is 20. And then the width is 9t. The height is 3. So we've got 2 times 9, 18. 18 times 3. That's going to be 54t. So total overall answer should be 114t plus 20. Now, if this was a multiple choice question, which obviously it would have to be, you should be able to also kind of use like a picking numbers and back solving combination approach where you pick a value for t, you plug that in, and then based on that number, you find everything and you work it all out and you get a numerical value and you go to the answer choices, you plug in that value of t that you chose and you see which one equals the numerical value that you work out. Now, I don't think it's going to be that much less work than what I did here because you're still doing the exact same steps. It's just that it's all numbers instead of expressions. So in other words, like if you let t equal 2, then the width is going to be 18, okay, instead of 9t. But the process is still the same. It's still the exact same work of finding the width and then plugging in the base area, which now instead of being 30t, it would be 60, and so on and so forth. But if you're more comfortable working with numerical values instead of expressions, I mean, you could do that approach instead. All right, next up, question number 4. So here we have a circle, and we know its center value. It's going to be like something up here. And we know it is tangent to the point a comma negative 4. All right. We don't know the radius of the circle, but whatever. I'm just going to like guess. Actually, that's going to be too small because it's got to go all the way down to negative 4 down here. 2, 3, 4. So it's got to be touching a line. Probably, probably something down here. So, okay, say it's a nice large circle like this. Here's our center. Okay, here's our point, a negative 4. And the tangent line right here, ignore the fact that it's technically not tangent. It's going through it twice, whatever, but that's a bad drawing. Slope of this tangent line is 7/9. Okay, so the question is, what's the value of a at this point right here? What is its x coordinate? So really what you have to do is um, you have to first notice that if you draw this radius here to the tangent line, it is perpendicular, which means the slope of the radius will be the opposite reciprocal of the slope of the tangent line. So the slope of the radius is going to be negative 9 over 7. So now what you have is you have the slope, you have 2 points, one of which has a variable in it. So you set up the formula, basically y2 minus y1. I'm just going to call this x2, y2 the center, 7 minus negative 4, and then over x2 minus x1, 3 minus a. Okay, now you could go ahead, um, see, 7 minus negative 4 is 11. So you could cross multiply and you get 77 right here. And then here we get negative 27 plus 9a. If we add this up, should get 104 equals 9a, and then just divide by 9. So a turns out to be, in this case, 104 over 9, or you could also enter 11.55 or 11.56. Now, I'm just going to go to Desmos, and I'm just going to actually type the equation in just to confirm that everything was done correctly. I'm going to use x instead of a. All right, gotta expand this a little bit. There we go. So I get to zoom in. Okay. So problem is, all right, because it's a rational equation, it doesn't let me click on it here. I mean, we can clearly see it's between 11 and 12, so that matches, roughly 11.55. So instead, what I'm going to do is use the preferred approach to solving equations, which is graph y equals left side, y equals right side, and then we're going to look for the intersection points. Okay, so I can see the intersection point is right here. All right, and that gives me 11.556, which you could enter as an answer. And the thing is, if you notice, if you just type a bunch of fives eventually, then it'll just confirm that the fractional value of 104 over 9. Okay, so that is or should be the correct answer. I haven't figured out a way to do this problem entirely in Desmos, meaning like just go through and type everything out. I mean, obviously you can type the equation, but I'm saying just not even needing to set up, doing it without even setting up, the slope equation. So perhaps there's a way um, to do that, but I haven't figured it out yet. Next, below that, we have a question which looks difficult, but actually is not. So you have an equilateral triangle, and we know that the height coming down here is 38 root 3. This is 60, this is 60, and the 60 at the top is split to 30, 30. So here you have here you have to know the properties of a 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? So the 38 root 3, the height, is across from the 60-degree angle, means it's the long leg. So to get to the short leg, which is this down here, you just have to take the long leg and divide it by root 3. So this just turns out to be 38. The same thing happens on the other side, and therefore the total length of each side is just 76, and that's it. Now, you could also technically look at this and say, okay, the short leg is 38, set across from the 30, therefore the hypotenuse is twice that, and say, okay, hypotenuse is 76, and if you want to think about it that way, that's fine as well. All right, next up, question 6. So here we have a problem where you're given two linear equations, basically a system of equations, but there's multiple constants in it. They want to know the value of g over k. And specifically, you're told that this system has infinite solutions. So here is you could try to solve this with sliders on Desmos. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it because this is most likely a free response question, not multiple choice. The fact that allows you to solve this or to determine this is when you have a system of equations and they're both in, essentially standard form. The ratio for infinite solutions, the ratio between or the multiplier between like the x terms and the y terms and the number terms are all the same number, the same value. So what that means is like if you take 1/2 divided by 2/9, that will be equal to the value of g divided by k. Like basically when you have an infinite solution system of equations, like here's a really simple example. X plus 2y equals 3, 2x plus 4y equals 6. We go to Desmos, we graph these out, you're going to see they're the same line. Like notice, first of all, if you do it in terms of multipliers, like this is times 2, times 2, times 2. Or if you do it in terms of like divide ratio of coefficients, here it's 1 over 2, 1 over 2. Here it's 2 over 4, which is just 1 over 2. Here it's 3 over 6, that's 1 over 2. So that principle, that idea is what allows us to easily solve this. So g over k is just equal to 1/2 divided by 2/9. You could go to Desmos if you don't, realize that I'm just doing the fraction division here. This is going to work out to be 9 over 4, or you could also enter it as 2.25. So either one of those would be acceptable, but that's it. That's for the answer. You don't need to do, you do not need to do any more work than that. All right, next up, question number 7. So here you have two data sets. One data set basically has 55 values, whatever from 180 to 260. Then for another data set, you take the same values, but you add the number 10. So this is what we would call an outlier. It's a number which is much smaller than all the other values in the original data set. So which of the following must be lower for data set B compared to data set A? All right, first of all, the mean is obviously going to go down. All right. You can just know that because you have a bunch of stuff that's like 180, blah, 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 up to 260, divided by 55. And now if you add an 8, and that mean is somewhere between 180 and 260. Like, doesn't matter what it is, but we know it's between those values. Now if you add 10 to it, that's obviously going to pull the mean down and force it to go lower. Okay? So the mean will obviously be lower. So that means we're basically looking at either A or C. Okay? So now the question is, what happens to the median? Well, the answer is we really don't know because we don't know how the numbers between 180 and 260 are distributed. In other words, we don't know what the median of data set A is. And we don't know if adding a number to it will affect the median because in the middle, basically, so you have 50, if you have 55 values originally, right, it's like 27 values below it, then the median, then 27 values above it. Okay, so in other words, the 28th value is your median. For the new one with 56, it's basically the average of the 28th and 29th value. So you add those, together, divide them by 2, and that's your new median. But we don't know what those are. So the median could be lower, but we don't know that it must be. So the correct answer to this one is just going to be letter A. All right, next up, this is a basically a repeat question, although it is a little bit different than the version I saw in, I think it was October, I believe. So there are multiple ways to do this. I guess you can watch my other video. I mean, I go through all the different ways in there. First, I will show you um, a short way, long way, easy. Yeah. First, I'll show you, let's say, a short way, easy way. Okay. First, what I would do is I would um, plug in 1 for x. And if you do that, notice on the left side you get a over 8 plus b over 8 plus c over 8 plus d over 8. Okay? Because 1 cubed is 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 is just 1, and there's no x on the last term here, okay? So if you let x equal 1, the left side is just a over 8 plus b over 8, c over 8 plus d over 8. On the right side, if you plug in 1 for x, you will get 120. Now let's just go to Desmos to confirm that. I think the easiest way is to just type the function and then we'll just do f of 1. Okay, there it is, negative 120. So now if you notice, what does a plus b plus c plus d equal? Well, you just multiply on both sides by 8. A plus b plus c plus d equals negative 960. There's your answer. That's it. Nothing more to do. Okay. Now, alternate methods you could use as well. We could go to Desmos and we could equate the two expressions. So it's going to take a while to type in. It's 1 squared and then plus c over 8. Okay, and now I put the subscript on that one. Put the subscript on this one. Okay, now it's gonna add an entry to make x1 a list. The reason we do that, okay, the reason that we do this, that we put x1 equals and then a bracket, and then in this case I'm going to put at least 4 entries since there's 4 different constants we're solving for, is because we want Desmos to treat x1 as a variable. We do not want Desmos to treat x1 as a constant. In other words, I want to find the values of a, b, c, and d that will make both sides of this, it's not really an equation, but both expressions equal for multiple values of x, okay? If you don't do this, it'll treat x1 as a constant and it'll try to find a value for it, and a lot of the times then the other constants have wrong values. Okay, so with that being done, now I could just do a plus b plus c plus d, negative 960, and there's your answer. Okay, so this is how you could do it entirely in Desmos. Just kind of a pain to type out, but an alternate method to get the correct answer. Now, one last thing I will say is, um, technically, if you go ahead and I'm not going to bother like going through all the work. I'll just basically skip steps and whatever. If you want, you can expand out this right side. Okay? And you can and so you can like square this and you can square this and then multiply it by the whatever in the front. So I will just tell you, if you do that, you get negative 400x cubed plus 320x squared plus 150x squared minus 64x minus 180x. I'm running out of room here. Plus 54. Okay, so in other words, you square this, then you distribute the 6. You square this, then you distribute the negative 16x. Then when you combine it, you get negative 400x cubed plus 470x squared minus 244x plus 54. And then basically this is the a over 8, this is the b over 8, this is the c over 8, this is the d over 8. So at this point, you could do each one individually, or you could just technically, the shortcut way would be just to add these all up and then multiply it by 8. Okay, and you're just going to see you're going to get the exact same answer. Because if you notice here, like 400, negative 400 times 8 is negative 3200. Notice that's the value we got right here. And like 54 times 8, is that 432? I think so. Yeah. So these are just these are the matching. These are the correct coefficients right here, that match. So you could do the algebra and do it that way, but I would not recommend it. I would just either use the first method or just do the entire thing in Desmos. All right. Next up, question number 9. This is, just a basic word problem. So essentially it's like $20 an hour for the first 40 hours for this worker, and then $30 an hour for any hours worked above 40 hours. So, okay, let's say I'm just going to use X here for the number of overtime hours, and you make this greater than or equal to 1045, right? So we go ahead, solve this out. This is just 800. You subtract this, you get 30x greater than or equal to 245. X is greater than or equal to 8.5. So a couple things. Okay, obviously 8 is out. Now 2, remember, this is just the number of overtime hours, okay? This is not the total number of hours. Total number of hours of the week is not, 8.5, or really it would be, because it says here total whole number of hours, so this really be rounded up to 9. That's not the answer. This is the number you have to add to the 40, okay? So in other words, this person must work at least 49 total hours in order to um, make 10 at least 10 $1,045 in a week. Obviously he makes more than that, but the point is you need to at least you need to work enough hours to have the total be at least that. 48 would not be enough. 48 would be less than that. And this one you also could solve by back solving, meaning you could start just with the answer choices and essentially you'd say, okay, 40 hours times the 20 plus, well, if it's 49, that means 9 hours times the 30. Multiply those together and see, is it greater than or equal to 1045? It is. Now, you technically would want to check B, though. Um, I mean, A should be the correct answer. There shouldn't be like multiple, but depending on how it's worded, you might need to check B. It might, like maybe on the test, it might say what's the minimum total whole number of hours, and you could plug that in. But you would see that for B, it would be less than 1045. So therefore, that would just confirm, the correct answer is A. All right, last question. You have an expression here, and it tells you that it can be factored two different ways. One way with positive integer factors, and one way with negative, or not negative, excuse me, with positive non-integers, meaning they're decimals or fractions. So, okay, factoring it the first way is relatively easy. I mean, you can just do trial and error, or we already know it's going to be 3x, plus something, and 2x plus something. Or excuse me, squared. 3x squared plus something, 2x squared plus something. And so it works out that it is 13 and 5 because this is 26x squared, this is 15x squared, 26 and 15, 41. Okay, so basically now we have A, we have B. Okay, A is 13, B is 5. Now, getting these other ones is tricky or is challenging. So here is the only way that I have figured out to do it. There might be other methods, but this is the only way that I've figured out. Basically, here, and I'm going to focus on like this using C and D, okay? We know that C times D has to equal 65 just because of the way the FOIL works out, right? The last two terms. And we also know that 2 times C plus 3 times D has to add up to 41 because, that's the inner and outer terms together basically make the middle term here. So what you do is you set up this system of equations and then you solve this for C or D. I mean, really, we only want C, so I would technically try to solve it for C. However, I would not do this by hand. I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to Desmos and get it that way. And technically, you're going to see this is going to give us actually A and B and C and D. So you don't even need to factor um, the first one on its own. You can just get the answer from basically solving this system of equations because there'll be two intersection points. The other thing is, of course, we're not going to use C and D. We're going to use X and Y in Desmos. So, okay, here are my two intersection points. Here's one, here's the other. Notice, this is 13.5, okay? And X is first, which corresponds to C in this problem, or A in the first expression. So it just confirms A is 13, and also the Y coordinate is 5. So 13.5, we already had that, this just confirms it. Now we know C is 7.5 and D is 8 2/3, 8.666 repeating. Doesn't matter because we don't need it for the problem. But again, I'm looking at the intersection points from this system of equations. So what is a plus c? Well, a plus c is 13 plus 7.5, which is 20.5. So the correct answer, you could fill it in as 20.5. You could also fill it in as 41 over 2 as well. Just let's see here, 20.5, just to confirm. Yep, 41.2, another also acceptable form. All right, so those were 10 more problems from the November 2024 Digital SAT Math section. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, sign up for notifications. Also, check out part 1 from the November test, which had 10 additional questions, and check out part 3 once it is posted as well. Again, if you have any comments or questions or alternate solution methods, post them, in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll be back soon with more SAT math related content.